You bought cowboy boots?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
You don't own a horse. You're not a cowboy.
People have been saying it's like the Wild West out there. Welcome back to the show, our 40th episode of what was formerly Talking Branches, and now due to copyright issues is now Branches Unpacked. So we're carrying it through this week, and lots of changes since last time we met and did the show. For those of you watching that maybe weren't here yesterday on Sunday, or I guess it would be 2 days ago by the time you see this, or weren't watching online, I would challenge you to go back and watch that important announcement, great message as well. So go back and check that out, and pause this and come back later.
Yeah.
Because Daniel made a big announcement. Daniel's actually going to be moving on to take a new position at a church in Portland, in Southeast Portland, in Milwaukee, not Wisconsin.
Not Wisconsin.
That's an important differentiator right there.
IE, not EE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So it is exciting on a lot of levels, but a lot of implications, obviously, for our organization as well. So we're going to kind of unpack that right now. So Daniel, start at the beginning of your journey a little bit and recap some of what you talked about yesterday.
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, Brandy and I got invited to visit a church plant in Southeast Portland called Hope City. And just visited there. I had gone to Bible college with someone who was on the plant team. And it was a church planted in Southeast with really a lot of the same passion that we share here at Branches, to see people who are far from God come near, which is kind of the vision and mission that I think I could say for both of us attracted us to this church and this organization in Columbia County. And so going and just supporting and being there for a church plant 10 years ago was a lot of fun. And obviously just because of the passion for the same kind of things, I've stayed connected with that church for at different levels for the last 10 years. And which has caused Branches to actually be kind of connected to Hope City and to another church. We'll get there in a second, over the years as well. Something that's kind of cool. Just another connection piece. Many of you have been around Branches for a long time. Might remember we had on staff one time a guy named Tom Weiss. Mm-hmm. He was our groups guy for about a year and a half. And he was on staff here at Branches with me, and we connected really well. And when Tom left Branches, he was living in Southeast and ended up landing at Hope City Church, actually. And he knew Brian, who was the pastor at Hope City. He knew Brian beforehand. So it was kind of a smooth transition in for him. And at that point, Brian at Hope City was looking for just to bring someone else on the team, and simultaneously was getting connected with a church in West Lynn called Willamette Christian Church. And they're a much larger church, been around a long time, I think close to 30 years now. And they also loved what Hope City was doing and wanted to just partner with them, and there's some financial partnership going on there at that time, and that's kind of how I got introduced to Willamette Christian. Mm-hmm. And I think you and your team have gone out to Willamette several years ago.
We checked out, it was actually just maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. We checked out their youth, their Sunday gathering, which is for middle schoolers, and then I think it was like a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, their high school gathering, and it was great. We got to meet the whole team there and see how they do things, and it was very encouraging to see. I mean, it's a much more urban, high density population area with just a lot of opportunities and lots of people, and to kind of see how another church does what they do, and they do it very well.
Yeah.
And I've attended a couple of their staff meetings as well.
Yeah.
Their whole church staff meetings, and that's been just a big eye-opening thing. It's a church with, I think they have 30 plus full-time staff members, and to kind of see how they run things at that larger scale is kind of it's very encouraging and fun.
I thought one thing that was cool is that when we went there, we left encouraged, not discouraged. Just felt like we had a group of people who were behind what we were about
Yeah,
to.
super supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I ended up connecting with one of their staff members at Willamette. His name's Josh. And for the last several years, probably 4 years, he's been kind of a leadership coach for me and a mentor for me, just helping me grow in my ability to lead. And he's been an excellent resource for us as a church too, just when we're facing things we've never faced or got questions. So that relationship has been building between both Hope City and Willamette for a long time. And recently, a few years back, Hope City became a part of the Willamette church family. They're now a campus of Willamette, still in Southeast Portland in Milwaukee. And there were some shifts that happened early this year in their staffing that left an opening for a lead pastor position at their Hope City campus. And because of the connection that I've had with them and their team and that they've had with us, I got a phone call mid-January saying, "Hey, this is kind of a shift that's happening." Said, "I don't know if you'd even be willing to consider having a conversation about this." And honestly, after that first conversation, I thought, man, I love Branches. I love this city. I've lived in Scappoose for 24 years. I moved here when I was just before I turned 11 years old, before 5th grade. Been here ever since. I'm 34. Haven't moved out once. So this has been my home. I've been at Branches for almost 14 years.
Yeah.
And not just sitting in a chair, but volunteering, serving on staff.
You've been all over the place. I served under you when you were the youth leader at Hillsboro, our Hillsboro campus that we used to have. And then I think I've served with you under you in production as well, early on in Branches days. And you've been, I think, a campus pastor at one point, a kids director, youth pastor, literally all over groups.
Been in groups for a little while, yeah.
So you've been, all over in your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I said this on Sunday at Branches. I've been through literally the most difficult seasons of my family's life have happened here. And this community has rallied around me and my family in the worst times. Yeah. And the greatest celebrations, getting married, having all 4 of our kids here in this church. This has been home for 14 years. And so when I got that call, I was like, man, I love what's going on. Nothing's wrong. And, most of the time we leave a position or a job or a place because we're frustrated or not content, or
you did something bad.
I mean, let's be honest, in church, it's a lot of times it's because of sin. Yeah. And so I got off the phone and I was like, man, that's a really cool opportunity. But also like, man, we're happy. But as Brandy and I, my wife, talked about just how we've approached things that have come across our plate in the past, we've always decided to take a step towards that option or that decision and have prayerfully asked God to close doors and open doors. And so when I got a call back saying, hey, we really would like to begin conversations if you're interested at all, I said, well, as long as you're okay with as long as you're okay with the potential that we may get a month into this conversation and the answer is no, we could walk towards that, because the answer for us right now is not yes, but it's also not no. Yeah. And so they expressed, well, we're in the same boat. Like, we don't know either. So we began having conversations, and after the first few, that's when I brought the board at Branches into the conversation and said, hey, this is happening. This conversation is happening. This process is happening. And I think it's really important for everyone to know too, like, Brandy and I, at the very beginning of this process of having these conversations about whether this would even be a good fit, we decided we're going to be committed to going through this process, but we are not committed to any one result. So we're going through this process not clinging to anything, not clinging to staying and not clinging to going, and knowing that through all of this, through the wisdom sought out from those in our life and leadership, that we would come to a conclusion that was ultimately God's best for us, and for our church. And so we were clinging to God speaking, and not any one result. And so it was a couple weeks ago I got the official offer, and a few days after that I accepted that offer, all after committing it to lots of conversation with people who are close and trusted to us, including our board here at this church, and obviously committing that decision and that conversation to much prayer and consideration. So
absolutely. I know, just going back to your relationship with Hope City, I do recall several times when you had gone out there, and I knew you had connections with that church, and when we went to Willamette for a staff meeting, I believe, you had connected with a lot of the people there, and you'd known them already. So when you told me, you kind of broke the news, and like it hit you, it kind of hit me like sideways, like really? Like I didn't even know this was a thing. So it kind of surprised me, but as soon as you said like, hey, it's another opportunity from a church, and I was very glad it wasn't that, because of a moral failure, that you were telling me like, hey, things are going to be changing here. So that's exciting in and of itself. And I knew it was Hope City right away though. When you had said that, I'm like, well, that just makes sense. Yeah. And so I kind of quickly put it together. So I think it's a great opportunity. And I think this year has been, with COVID and everything, it's been a season of maybe preparing for a lot of changes. I think we've all kind of realized early on, we're kind of fighting it like, hey, the world, we're going to return to normal. And now we're like trying to figure out, well, what is normal? And not even regarding COVID precautions or anything like that, but I feel like everybody's lives have changed over the last year. I've noticed a lot of people are more willing to like make a major life change or move to a new area when they maybe hadn't been before. So I just see a lot of that. And while it's different and we're really change adverse as a people, I think in general, it's like you're still trusting God through it. And there's nothing that, that is unbiblical or wrong about like, change of scenery, change of location, geographical location or whatever. God, as long as God's in the midst of it, like it can be a beautiful, beautiful thing. With that said, it's not easy for a lot of people. And I know it's a decision that you didn't take lightly. No. You take a lot longer to make decisions than I do a lot of times. I usually am like, hey, let's go. Like, drop of a hat and I'm ready to go. And I know you talked about it with a lot of people and struggled through it. And like you said, man, you've been in this organization for so long. And we grew up a block away from each other, as kids in this small town. And now we're in our mid 30s somehow and serving together. And so I know it's like and I love this town. I love the city. I love these people. So to leave that, man, it's difficult.
It's not simple. There's a lot of emotions that go with it. There's obviously excitement for what's next, but there's also, I think I'm a little bit ahead of everybody else in this process because I've been thinking about it longer and considering it and weighing options and understanding the cost of stepping out of a community I'm so used to. So I think I'm further through the process, but I absolutely have had a lot of time of mourning, of loss. Losing proximity to people I care about a lot I'm not done, obviously, but it's hard. But while it's hard, it's right. And I know it's right. And I know that all of us have a process to go through in arriving at that conclusion. Not everyone's going to have that conclusion right away. But what I do know, based on experiences that I've had time and time again, and many of those that I've shared with you and the staff here and the board here, is that that on the other side of really, really difficult, confusing, uncertain circumstances, God has beauty on the other side. Absolutely. And we have seen that here. Branches history is riddled with humanity, human sin and brokenness. Just like any other church and any other organization, any family is riddled with encountering brokenness and hurtful circumstances. And in this situation, it's not the same because there's not sin, there's not as much brokenness involved, but there's still pain and loss feeling.
Absolutely.
But God has something beautiful, and so I've thought about the last 2.5 years of me being specifically in the lead pastor role, feeling very confident that this is right where God had me and my family and us as a church. We've been right where we've needed to be, which means that whatever's next for Branches, whatever season is next, is not for me to lead us through.
Yeah.
And that's okay. In fact, that's a good thing. That's part of what God's up to.
Yeah.
And so if God's calling me out of this position and into something different, that means that God is currently in the process of calling someone else into this position.
Right.
And it's Him orchestrating that. And it's our job to say, God, what is that? Would you show us? Would you speak to us? And would you give us the faith and the patience to go through the process of knowing that for sure.
Right, and like you said yesterday, and you said this all along throughout this transition to your staff, that Branches is not like the big church. It's not the big church,
right,
like the overarching like capital C church.
Yeah.
We're a body of believers that do great in this community, and we love it. But God's got a much bigger picture of what His church in the world looks like. Yeah. And it is okay that you're stepping away because God does have something else here, and just trusting God through that. And I mean, as much as people might be watching this and be a little skeptical, they're like, yeah, I just don't know how I feel about it. I mean, this is me, this is Daniel. We're not like trying to pull something over on you. Like, this is legitimate, and it's hard, man. It's hard. Like you said, we don't like to change it. There is still some hurt in it. There's an uprooting of relationships, the changes of scenery, and all that kind of stuff that's difficult. And Branches may look different. It will probably look a little different than it does currently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
God can still move. God still wants to work in this group of people, and it can be a very beautiful, beautiful thing. So I guess trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process, trust God, because the success of Branches has very little to do with me. It has everything to do with our church, which is us. It's the people. And who's really in charge, which is God, which is Jesus.
And he's not done here.
He's not
just because you're going somewhere else. He's not done here.
That's right.
So I'm excited for the future. Is there anything else that you want the people to hear from you at Branches as kind of a send off? I know that you'll be here for the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about that in a minute. But any final remarks?
Thank you. And I love you very much. And it's been an honor to be here. And there will always be a piece of my heart that's here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know you've left a lasting impact on a lot of lives, including mine. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that said, people are probably wondering what's next for Branches. So let's talk about that for just a couple minutes.
Yep.
You talked about this yesterday at our Sunday service. There's two questions, the when and the who. So let's get the real practical stuff out of the way. When's your last day at Branches?
Yeah. So I'll be preaching all the way through Easter in April.
April 4th.
Which is April 4th.
Yeah. So just 2 weeks.
Yep. And then April 11th will be my last Sunday at Branches. And I'll finish out the week here. But April 11th will be the last Sunday. And we talked as a board, we talked about quick, we talked about longer transition, longer time. And we just really landed on, while a shorter time is maybe more emotionally hard, a shorter time is more healthy. And less confusing. So April 11th will be our last Sunday here at Branches.
All right.
Yeah.
So that answers that question. So on to the who. Who's up next?
Well, who's up next? That's a good question, and I think a really important one, and one that needs to be answered with immense care and prayer and consideration. And so, and one that really needs to be made ultimately by the board at Branches. They're responsible for the health of the organization. They're responsible for the direction of the church. And so while they're going to carry the weight of that decision, they're also going to be taking into consideration and giving a lot of weight to the staff, and they're going to be involving the staff in that process, and giving a lot of weight to the staff's perspective on that and opinions. Now, to provide even more clarity, because there's a lot of uncertainty, so the goal of the board and the goal of the staff, while things are uncertain and we can't answer every question, we want to be clear about what we do know. And so just for the purpose of clarity, Ryan Cook, who's one of our elders on the board, is going to be taking point on this transition. So he'll be kind of the point communicator as far as communicating what's next and information for both the staff, the board, and all of you. So I want to be clear though, he's not stepping into the role. He's not the new lead pastor. He's just managing and leading this transition period as a member of the board. And the board is currently really working out the details of what process they're going to be utilizing for finding the next lead pastor. Yeah. And it's on them to make that decision and look at how we're going to do that internally, externally. What does that look like? Yeah. And for me, it's really strange to not be involved in that, because as a leader, like, I want to fill that gap before I leave. But the reality is, it's not my job. Yeah. Because I don't have to live with the consequences of who's chosen. So yeah. The board takes that on in conjunction with the staff.
And they're a very capable group. I know they've been meeting already, over the last couple of weeks a lot, because my wife's on the board. So they've had a lot of 5-hour-long meetings on the weekends, discussing, how to go about this. So they really are covering all their bases. They're working on, I know right now, a job description for the job listing, and that'll be going through soon. And I know you might be able to shed some more light on this, because I might get in trouble for saying this, but you're like, don't say it.
We'll just cut it.
No, yeah, we can cut it. No, but I think their ultimate goal is to have it be not like too soon to find a position, someone to fill the position, but like also not too long. Yeah. And I've heard, some different timetables of like 3 months, 4 months, something like that, where we can hopefully have the right person identified and get them in.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I want to reiterate what you said too first, and then I'll address that. But I am impressed with our board and their competency and their ability, and I am confident in you guys as a staff. We have an incredible staff and an incredible group of people on the board who love this community and love this church dearly, and are ready and willing. I mean, we had a meeting last Monday, staff and board together. And I just remember the staff looking at the board members and saying, we're here. This is our church. We're committed.
Yeah, we still have a job to do.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do that job in the interim.
Yes.
In fact, I would say the next 3-4 months while we're doing the job search will probably look more normal than what we thought normal. Yeah. And that we thought normal would be when we have someone in the new position. Like, we're going to continue what, we've all, as staff members, have been at Branches for a long while. And so we got a job to do, and we know how to do it, and we're going to continue to do it during this time.
Which is amazing.
So Branches isn't going to look a whole lot different in the near future.
Right, exactly. It's just going to continue going and continue building a church we can bring our friends to, creating authentic community, following Jesus and living out our values. And then in just to talk on, the time frame of filling that position, the board has a really good, there's a tension there, right? We want to fill that spot as soon as possible, because the longer it goes unfilled, the more, it's just not as clear. And so we want to get someone in that spot. But there's also the tension of finding the right person. And I know the staff and the board feel that tension and recognize that's a tension to manage, not a problem to solve. Right. So we don't want to just hurry up and get somebody, but we also we want to take the time that's necessary to find the right person. So there's the tension of the right person and the tension of expediency. And we're not going to solve that tension. We're going to manage it in a healthy way. So that's important.
Yeah, that's good. Well, great. I think that answers most of the questions we have. So,
can I say one more thing?
Yes, you can.
For those of you, if there's questions, if there's emotions that you're processing, if there's clarity that we have not given that you think is deserved, I want to offer two things. If it's in relation to why or the decision that I made for my family to make this transition, you can email me. Or text me if you have my number, or Facebook message me. I am placing high priority on transparency for this, and I'm not afraid of any questions or any emotions or any conversations. So my email is my first last name at branches.tv, daniel.knutson@branches.tv, KNUTSON. You can email me, you can call me, you can message me. If you have questions for what's next, you can email our board at board.elders@branches.tv. That's elders with an S. Board.elders@branches.tv. And that'll get out to all of our elders at the same time. So we value clear communication, and here's the truth. We're going to get some of that wrong. We're going to miss some of that. So I actually would say we need your help in making sure that we're being clear. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
I think for the case of transparency and everything, and I know you've been very transparent, and I would just encourage you, if you're watching and you do have some issues or questions or whatever, reach out, because we'd rather have that happen, even if it's a little uncomfortable and you don't know if it's your place. Just reach out, because we'd rather have that happen than you sit with that and with unanswered questions and lack of clarity,
or decide to leave or get frustrated for something that maybe isn't even true or isn't even a reality. So give us the opportunity to just share with you and answer questions you've got.
And grace for the board and the church in this transition, and knowing that we are putting our best foot forward in the job search and what's next for Branches. It's not going away by any means. We are pressing through this and excited for this new season. But like I said, there will be some stuff that might be frustrating, but just feel free to communicate any of those frustrations with us, because we want your help through this, and we want your prayers and grace through this. We need it. So if you would just join us in prayer for the future of Branches. So well, thanks so much, guys. We will see you in the future.